studied the market at the time before the president made that proclamation. Because if you remember, with that proclamation, it was an instant hike in all of the prices from 100 and something to about 800 at the time, and now we're having it about 1,400. And that's one issue again. And then at the other side, we've said, okay, we have our own refineries in Nigeria, even though that's not working. We have Dangote refinery, which is working, and we have our own national refinery in Kaduna, Port Harcourt, and Warri. Those are refineries that would have helped us. You have removed subsidy, and that has given you more money. What have you done with that more money? Even though we know the government at the time, they told us they were going to reinvest the monies that they have saved from paying, the trillions of naira they have saved from paying subsidy. They told us they would invest it in transport by bringing electric buses, because we know the economy now has transited to clean energy, where instead of using petroleum, fossil fuels, we're now advocating for using cleaner energy. But Saidi, let's be honest with ourselves. 3 years down the line, how many of these buses, or CNG powered buses like they call them, how many of them are plying the streets of Abuja here where we are? How many of them are the people benefiting from? Even though I know and when they talk about hardship, sometimes we tend to throw the weight or the blame on the federal government. And people have said, you have got governors in the states. You've got governors who have had more monies than ever before, because with the removal of subsidy, the government's budget has increased. We've seen even with the hike in fuel price internationally. When we see international fuel prices hike, what that means is that governments tend to have more money because you're selling crude at a more expensive price. Because I think our current budget pegged the price of crude oil, I think, at $80 per barrel. But now we're having it at $100 per barrel, which means we're getting more than we had budgeted for. So what are we doing with that extra money that's coming into the purse of the government? That's the question that the government needs to answer.
I want to ask you a quick question before I forget. What's the relationship between Nigeria being affected with foreign prices?
That question, Sadia, is a very technical question, even though our expert will do justice. But from the little I know, prices, if you are an OPEC member state, that's the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, you are bound by international prices. Even if you have the crude oil in your own country, you have to come and sell it at the international market in dollars, and it is pegged at that. Even though that's something that has been happening for so long, and other people have said that is not serving the interest of a nation. That is like you're serving a corporate interest at the international level. Why not? You already have this in your own house. Why not refine it, sell it within your own local market? We've seen with Dangote refinery that has been a problem. Dangote refinery at some point was getting crude from the NNPCL, but it was being sold in dollars, which means it's going to be more expensive because he has got to source for forex, that's for dollars at the foreign market, which will be more expensive to procure. And then he now comes to the Nigerian market and buys Nigerian product in dollars. That's a problem. But we've seen that the government at some point said, okay, we'll sell to you crude in naira. That happened for a while, and then they said we're going back to selling in dollars. So it's a bit of a jam-packed situation, Sadia.
So what do you think the government can do to help the situation?
First of all, to be honest with you, I have never been an advocate for removing subsidy. Even though it's gone, it's gone. If there's any way the government, even if you're not bringing back a total subsidy, because like we said earlier, if you look at all the major economies in the world, even if they are as capitalist as America can be, America still has a bit of subsidy in many sectors. The government still gives palliative to the vulnerable American people. There are people who are jobless in America who do not have social security, but the government has plans for them in the budget of America. So for Nigeria, if we are removing subsidy and it's not, subsidy for me has not worked. Removing subsidy has not worked, because if you are making that much money and you are not, the people are not feeling that impact. The essence of government is two things that we've been told in politics. It is the security of lives and property and welfareism of the people. How much have our lives been secured? We all know the answer. The welfare, how much has been provided? We know the only thing that poor people have enjoyed over time has been government subsidies. Subsidies in electricity, subsidy in the oil sector, subsidy in the agri sector, to make sure that they are able to afford 3 square meals. How many people are able to eat 3 square meals now? Not even the poor people, not the poorest of the poor. The middle and middle income people. How many homes are able to eat 3 times daily? That's a problem. And our guest I've learned has joined the conversation, and he'll be bringing us to speed with all of the conversation. And he is a development expert in the person of Isa Ibn Muhammad. Thank you so much for joining the conversation.
And before we get him,
okay, you're not joined on the conversation. So our guest is going to join that conversation, but before then, Sadia, we were talking about the impact of subsidy and how it has not really worked for Nigeria. And analysts have said already, the government has done that. Okay, how are you bring palliatives for people to cushion the effect? And so far, so good. It's not really been the ideal situation, but we hope to see them do better, because it's really biting hard on the common man.
Yes, let's come back home, Nigeria.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about the foreign countries, the OPEC, even though I know it's important. All right. So, there was a time during Buhari's tenure that subsidy was removed. And then Nigerians protested.
That was actually during Jonathan. Yes, Jonathan removed subsidy, I think sometime in 2011. Yes, end of 2011.
Then he brought back subsidy.
Yes.
During that time, I think our naira still has a value. Because for me now, Nigerian currency, I don't think we have that value. Because you just spend, maybe you go to the market with 50,000 naira with the hope of getting a few things, enough things that you feel like this will be enough. But when you get there, what you come back with is no more than this yellow and black
leather bag. Nylon bag. How about today is the situation? You take 50k to the market, 100,000 to the market. What is the value of 100,000 in Nigeria's economy? And don't forget, we talked about government and global best practices. How much is our minimum wage in Nigeria? It is 70,000. How many liters of fuel can 70,000 get? Can 70,000 give, let's say someone that owns a car, can 70,000 naira even get you a full tank? That's the question. For households, can 70,000 naira take care of an entire expenditure? Let's not even the entire expenditure. Let's say the food expenditure of a family. Can 70,000 naira cater for that family? That's the question. When we talk about other countries are not paying subsidy, they are not. They
have other measures put in.
But how much is the minimum wage? That's why I don't like it when we do comparisons with other countries. Every country has got his or her own reality, and I think we should develop at our own pace. And we should work with our own realities, not always comparing ourselves with other economies who might have actually gone further than Nigeria. So that's the problem of Sadia.
You see, I told Ubongis the other day that for me, beating down the price of cars, it doesn't really matter. Because for some, all they are just after is to eat. And then...
Now let's go on a quick short break. We'll be back on the other side of this break to continue the conversation. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back from that break. Now the conversation still continues. We've been looking at the rise in fuel price in Nigeria and its intending impact on Nigeria's economy, on the common man masses, and basically the overall well-being of Nigeria. And to help us unpack these issues, we are joined by Isa Ibn Mohammed. He is the Senior Research and Programs Fellow at the Center for Media Policy and Accountability here in Abuja. He's also a policy researcher with experience in governance, accountability, public finance, institutional reforms, and evidence-based advocacy. His work is one that has focused on strengthening democratic governance, promoting transparency, and supporting public policies that improve Nigeria's lot. Mr. Isa, thank you so much for joining us on Global Morning.
Thank you, Mukhtar, for having me.
Understanding the current situation, let's begin with what is happening globally. We've seen that crude oil prices have now crossed the $100 mark. And I'd like to understand what exactly has driven this latest increase and how has it impacted us, Nigeria, locally. Like my colleague asked earlier, she said Nigeria is an oil-producing country. Why are we affected by what is happening outside Nigeria when we have our own crude oil? So I'd like for you to bring us to speed with that and reality.
Thank you very much, Mukhtar. It's an interesting question. Of course, to start with the latter, right? Nigeria is not in isolation of what's going on in the international community, right? So the current crisis between America, Israel, and Iran, of course, has impacted oil prices. And because majorly Nigeria's foreign currency earner is through crude, were impacted, right? Just like every other state in the world. With the closure, the reopening and closure, and now by the permission of Iran, the crossing of the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, what happens, with the conflict is going to affect most countries. And I say most because petrol is still one of the major energy sources that we use in powering vehicles and other machines. Right. So, of course, whatever is happening in the international community is always going to have an impact back here at home. Basically, we cannot be isolated from the happenings in the international community, as it were.
I
didn't get that.
How much of this is being driven by genuine supply concerns, and how much is the market speculation?
Of course, you see, at some point, sometimes we have to, in trying to unpack some of these issues, we have to look at issues from bifocal lenses. First, to ask the question, what is the ideological base of the Nigerian state? And if you answer that question effectively, you are now able to go further, right? Of course, what happens in the international community, as we have it with oil prices, is going to have its own domestic impact, right, at home. But if the Nigerian state were a reasonable state, in the sense that the state's ideology looks at the welfare of the people, the state is able to a very large extent, mitigate, the cost of the international oil prices, as we've seen other states do around the world, right? But unfortunately, the Nigerian state is currently approaching our ideological base from a neoliberal angle. And if you look at what it is doing, you'd see that the state is being irresponsible or irresponsive to the yearnings and the needs of the people. And so at some point, you had crude oil being sold at $70 per barrel, during the pre-crisis period, right, before we entered in.
Now, thank you. We're going to be joining our guest again. It seems to be a network connection, but from what he has said, Sadia, I have understood one thing. One thing he has said is...
Yes.
Okay, he's back on the line. So sorry, you can continue, Mr. Issa. We are with you. We had a bit of a network issue, but yeah, continue, please.
At some point, we had, when negotiations started, we saw the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz during the peace period, and then we saw how prices came down. The international prices came down to around below 18 naira, around $70 per barrel. This was the amount that it was sold pre-war. But interestingly, Nigerian oil marketers, including the biggest one, refused to bring down prices. They removed 15 naira, removed 10 naira, removed this, without seeing adequate commensuration from the government, taking charge of the responsibility that the state is meant to do, to regulate the market and to regulate what goes on in the state. And so we have to go back to asking the question I started with: what is the ideological baseline of the Nigerian state? It is a welfare state. Is it a neoliberal state? And how does this impact, the ordinary people that live here?
It's not all gloomy, because with the rise in prices, Nigeria is now expected to earn more revenue from crude oil. But then the citizens experience hardship even with this more revenue and windfall for the government. So why is that contradiction something that we have seen continue to exist in Nigeria's economy?
Initial question, right? What is Nigeria's ideological baseline? Every state must have what guides it, right? Of course, one of Nigeria's major foreign currency earner is crude, right? And so when prices go up in the international market, when we're able to meet our OPEC quota, we sell more, we make more. But how does that, affect the ordinary Nigerian who is, sitting here? And that is where there's a big contradiction. The state is able to make more money. The Nigerian federal government is able to, send out more money to the component unit. But all of these monies have not had any serious impact on the life of the average man. And it is in this I align with your thought earlier when you were saying that you do not believe in the removal of subsidy. I, for one, do not think that removal of subsidy is the only solution that the government under Bola Ahmed Tinubu had, to end the scandal within the subsidy regime. We're a country of more than 200 million people. It is insulting to us to say that the only solution that you have is just one solution, and that solution was to throw ordinary Nigerians into this level of chaos economically. So while the government is making so much money right now, it's like a windfall, right? The government is making so much money. Component units, the states and local governments are making so much money, but the ordinary Nigerian is left to be the major victim in this entire process. And it's unfair that the Nigerian state, decides that the major casualties of whatever is going on will be the ordinary people. And so it's a huge contradiction that sometimes it ends up at the bulk of what is the question. You ask the question, what is, the ideological baseline of the Nigerian state under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
realistically expect? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go on, please.
All right, I said looking at the next few weeks, what should Nigerians realistically expect?
What should Nigerians expect? They expect more of the same, man. It's more of the same. So long as oil prices continue to go up, petroleum prices, as we've seen with our very unpatriotic oil marketers, of course, petroleum prices are going to shoot up, right? Because the state is absent in regulating that particular sector, right? And so Nigerians should expect that prices will shoot up. I don't know. I heard and I read that the NNPCL has increased our own pump price. You should expect MRS to do the same. You should expect other oil marketers to do the same. If we had a situation where prices had come down and oil marketers refused, to oblige what was ongoing in the international market, we know that the only thing they respond to is if there's an increment. And of course, crude prices have gone up. Would expect that these guys will do the unpatriotic thing that they are always used to doing: shoot up prices and let the ordinary Nigerian suffer for it. Of course, since the state has refused to take its responsibility of regulating what goes on in the Nigerian economy.
Businesses, because we all know that when all of these things happen, the ordinary Nigerians expect a lot of tough times. So I'd like for you, from your perspective, you've seen the real life situation and you've seen even the research. So what are the impacts on households, the increase of fuel? How does it impact our households and the Nigerian businesses and economy generally?
Well, you see, for businesses, right, Mukhtar, it's going to be more cost of production, right? But I've always argued that businesses, while they say they suffer, I'm not a business person, so I don't know, but why they say they suffer, right? They suffer a lot from the impact that goes on in the economy. Businesses are able to transfer their costs to their customers, right? So if it took me 10 naira to produce an item, and because of what's going on in the economy, I have had to increase my cost of production to 15 naira, and hitherto I was selling it for 13 naira since it cost me 10 naira. Now I would make it 17 naira. So while I suffer that, looking for money to keep my production, as it were, I would transfer the burden of production, to the ordinary person. And that is why in most of the analysis, whether you like it or not, at the end of the day, businesses might suffer a turnover because fewer people are not going to have monies to buy, those products, but they would not end up losing, right? But the ordinary person, especially those who eke out a living, who are being paid salaries and all of that, whose earnings have remained static, they are the ones who bear the brunt, right? They are the ones who will no longer have 3 square meals. They are the ones who will no longer be able to fuel their generators to power electricity. They are the ones at the end of the day who take the burden of the state, right? And this is where there is a contradiction, right? Because the state exists, primarily for the welfare of the people. It's the whole essence of the social contract that exists between the ordinary person and the state. And if the state now transfers her own burden on ordinary people, then it becomes very, very callous.
Anything government can do to slow down that chain reaction once it begins?
The government is irresponsive and irresponsible, and so you don't expect that this government is going to do anything about that. The president has said that he does not believe in price regulation. He does not believe, therefore, in the interference of the state in such matters, all right? And so if the state itself says it is going to allow for a free fall, you have the situation that you have. And so you don't expect the state to do anything. The state is going to come out and, reel out press briefings and all of that, but there is no actual translation of these things in the real economy. And the real economy is the economy that you and I, are in, and not the ones on paper, not the ones IMF read out, not the ones the state itself read out. It's the you and I who go to the market to see what's going on there. And so you would ordinarily not expect the state to do anything to cushion these effects, right? If the state were interested in cushioning anything, we would have seen a reaction from the state when petroleum prices went down to $70 per barrel within the last few months, right? But the state did not do anything. And so you don't expect the state to do anything at this point, right? You respect a reasonable state to increase social security, find a way of alleviating the sufferings that the ordinary person is going. But the state is not going to do that, especially not under this very neoliberal government that we have.
States would not really do anything like we've seen. That means the people are left by themselves to develop coping mechanisms. So I'd like for you to tell us from research and even experience, are there already strategies that households are adopting to survive the harsh condition? Or would you have anyone that you would like to tell people to adopt to be able to, get by a bit better than they currently are going by?
Well, you see, Mukhtar, when we have these kinds of conversations, right, it's a pity that it ends up asking ordinary people to become more resilient. The government has told us to become more resilient, that it's just for a period of time and that things are going to get better and all of that. The president has said several times that I understand your pain, but he really doesn't understand the pains of ordinary people, right? The coping mechanism that ordinary people would have is to do more of the same, right? What is more of the same? Continue to manage their lives. If they were eating 3 square meals and whatever is happening in the economy is impacting them negatively, they bring it down. The people would survive either ways, but it is in that survival that there is a problem, because when a people become too docile to speak out, and a people simply want to keep being pushed to the wall and refuse to speak out, then that in itself is a problem. Coping mechanisms are good, right? But you cannot cope at your own detriment. A people cannot be complicit in their own suffering. And we can say all of the things we want to say. The state can continue to be as irresponsible and as irresponsive as it is. But I think that when the people get choked with whatever is going on, maybe they begin to speak out more, and maybe we're able to see that the people can actually be active participants in decision making rather than as docile as they are. Of course, the people would keep doing more of the same. Whatever it is we're doing right now is what we're going to keep doing. We're going to keep skipping meals. We're going to start trekking from location 1 to location 2 because we cannot pay our fares. We're going to refuse to visit places because we do not have the resources to do that. We're just going to keep managing as we have done in the past 3 years, basically.
Come up when we see tough times. So I'd like for you to speak to those special, social consequences that you see that are on the rise, that will be on the rise if these harsh conditions continue, and if there's a way we can mitigate them before they happen.
Mukhtar, there are always going to be social consequences when there is hardship in an economy. The psychology and the philosophy of people are different, right? Some people can withstand some of these things. Some people would not be able to withstand it. Some of them would have to now take to crime, right? And they could be far more consequences, than crime. People can become disenchanted with the state and see that the state is not what it is. We've seen how Nigerians are aching, to leave the country. Because while on the one hand, the state promises that things are going to get better, on the other hand, reality is quite different from theory, right? And so there are a lot of consequences, that this hardship can ensue. The state, on its own part, can choose to be reasonable. The state can choose to be compassionate. The state can choose to become a welfarist system, right? Rather than a system that is aimed at just impoverishing her people. I make jokes that I have been pushed down the poverty ladder. If I was already, sitting down very comfortably in the Nigerian middle class, if there's anything like that, I've been pushed down the ladder because the things that I could hitherto afford, I can no longer afford them without actually, suffering to do them. And so the state can choose to be compassionate. The state can choose to, alleviate some of this suffering by being more responsible than it is currently. Right now, from where I'm sitting, the state is unperturbed about what goes on, with everyday Nigerians. The state is more interested in statistics that the IMF or the government itself reels out. And so it gives them some sort of comfort if they see such statistics. But those statistics are quite different from what we see on the ground. And if statistics do not reflect in the market, then the statistics is just gibberish, right? And so with respect that the state is able to become more responsible and more responsive, the state should speak, walk the talk, as it were. The president keeps saying that he understands what's going on, he understands the sufferings and all of that. Let us see the state being responsible. And that's the only way that we're going to find some sort of solution to all of the contradictions that come with the rising of cost of living.
Area of governance, public policy, and also accountability. You are a researcher and you've done a lot of research, especially with the Center for Media Policy and Accountability. So whenever it is we see governments begin earning more, like we've established, even though you've already said most of the governments from your perspective seem to be tilting towards a exploitative state than a welfare for the people, but we've seen that they are earning higher in crude. What should the citizens expect reasonably, if you look at it from the point of view of accountability and policy perspective?
You see, there's always difference between people's expectations and actual reality, right? In governance research, we give time, right? So, for instance, before we assess somebody or we assess a system or an administration, we say, okay, why not give it time? That time allows you to actually look at, maybe where policies translate, to actual realities on the ground. You cannot expect, I'm sorry, I'm being very pessimistic, right? You cannot expect anything different from what you have currently, right? We were told that removing subsidies from petroleum products and floating of the naira was going to translate into some very fantastic, I don't know, but it's been almost 3 years, right? And this is where we are. This is where we still are. What we have seen the government do, and it is the reason why you have 31 state governors backing a president that the ordinary Nigerian has not seen in a very long time, right? We've seen that the central government is sending more monies to the component unit. Local governments are making more money, even though they are going to the state governments. State governments are making more money. They now have money that they've not had in a very, very long time. And so what have these guys been able to do with these monies that they've been receiving in the past 3 years? I don't want to answer that question, right? But it is there. We all live in Nigeria, and we all see what these guys have been doing with the money. You have a central government that is refusing to implement an appropriation bill, right? And so what do you expect from such a state, from such a regime? You expect more of the same.
In this particular question.
Yes, let's talk about way forward. What do you think, what measures do you think the Nigerian government can put in place to, I think, create lasting solution to this oil floating price?
Since we're bringing it down to oil, I would expect that the state should intervene, right, with marketers, right? In fact, when the state tried to do that, when prices came down in the international market, I read that marketers were threatening to go on strike, right? If the state is so powerful that, as we've seen illustrated by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he should be able to calm down on some of these guys. And of course, we know that when we say that petrol is the live wire of the Nigerian economy, we don't only mean that it is because it's Nigeria's foreign currency earner. No, it's because petrol is essentially the live wire of the Nigerian economy. If I want to have water in my house here, I have to use, petrol to put in a generator to pump water, right? If some woman is grinding maize or corn somewhere in one interior part of Nigeria, she needs petrol, right? So petrol is indeed a very important commodity, as it were. And so we would expect that we see the central government, trying hard to actually intervene when international prices come down eventually, that the marketers do not continue to exploit ordinary Nigerians who need it. We would also expect that the central government, find a way of alleviating. When this policy came to birth, the state said it was going to provide palliatives, do this, do that. All of those have not been put in place. You can probably count the number of CNG buses in Abuja if you even see them. I have not seen one. And I say this very categorically. I have not seen one. But they say they are CNG buses, but how many of those buses can carry people? Right? So the state needs to walk the talk, right? People are suffering. It's important for the government to understand that people are not where they were 3 years ago, and that cannot and should not continue.
About the government, but I'd like for us to shift a bit. Is there any responsibility that citizens themselves, all of us collectives as communities, because we've heard government always come out to say, we cannot do it alone, we need your support, and also the private sector, are there any roles that they have in contributing to easing the entire situation, just beyond government?
Well, I think if you are going to be fair to citizens, Malam Mukhtar, citizens have contributed enough. Citizens have been patient. Citizens are, doing what they need to do to survive. Of course, taking out all of the little contradictions that you have. Nigerian citizens are some of the best citizens you have anywhere, because I know that should this be happening in other parts of the world or in some parts of the world, the state will not be where it is right now, right? Imagine the cost of fuel, right? Before this government came and before the removal of subsidy from petroleum products, petrol was about 180 something naira, right? Or 190 something naira. It's now being sold for 1,400, 1,003, etc. If you look at the geometric progression, the astronomical way that price moved from 0 to 100, it's mind-boggling, and you would not see citizens go to petrol stations and buy. In some countries, they will be on the streets right now. So the Nigerian people are doing what they should do. They are being calm, they are being patient, they are believing that at some point there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And that's the best you expect from citizens. They are coping, right? They are coping amidst the poverty that they live. And so if you expect more from citizens right now, I just think you expect them to just go over and die or do something. I don't know. But the Nigerian people are doing the best they can.
Thank you very much. We are about to wrapping up. But before we go, despite all of these challenges, final take, are you optimistic about Nigeria's future, and what gives you that optimism considering all of the economic and governance challenges that we continue to face?
I'm a patriot, right? I refuse to be cynical with the Nigerian state. I believe that the Nigerian state is going to go out of this. I believe that the Nigerian state is going to work. And it is the reason why some of us continue to believe that this country is made for greater things, right? I don't think that we're going to start and end like this. The Nigerian state is going to come out of this maybe stronger. But the state does not survive on its own. The state is a social contract that exists between those who govern and those who are being governed. And you cannot have an imbalanced relationship until the state, the government, does what it should do. You would not expect that the state is going to have the kind of growth and development it would have.
Conversation. We really appreciated your insights and your recommendations, and we hope the authorities that are concerned have taken lessons and would implement it for the betterment of Nigerians. That conversation has been with Isa Ibn Mohammed. He's a senior research fellow and a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much once again for joining the conversation this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Sadia, that was an amazing conversation, if you ask me, and it was one that really has touched the heart of what is concerning the Nigeria economy as it is today. And what take-homes do you have of that particular conversation today?
Talking about the take-home, he has said it all. He talked about the issues we are facing, the challenges, and then he talked about, of course, way forward, how the challenge. All right. So for me, I think we should be at this junction. I said, you remember, I said it when we were starting this, when we wanted to start this segment.
Yes.
I said, I give this to Nigerians. We adapt to situation. Whichever situation we find ourselves, we tend to quickly adapt to that situation.
True.
Now, today you get to buy petrol at the rate of maybe 1,000 naira.
400.
Just for example,
yes.
You get to buy it the 900 and something. That's NNPC price.
Yes.
Then tomorrow you go there to buy that same NNPC to buy same product.
Yes.
At the rate of 1,002, 1,003, 1,000 plus. At that point, we would complain.
True.
But then we would buy and move on.
We'll move on. But then, moving on, how long can we continue doing that?
Exactly. So I feel maybe because we are not protesting. Even if you protest, will they hear you?
Well, there are other methods. We don't have to. Of protest, civil protest is something that's within the ambient of a democracy. Beyond protest, like for me, as a government, if you know you are there for the people, they don't even have to come out to protest. Do the needful. But of course, like you said, it's a provision in the constitution that allows people to demonstrate civilly. Yes. And we just hope it doesn't get to that. And we just get to do the right thing. Yeah, so today's conversation reminds us that the rising fuel price is about more than what motorists pay at the station. It affects transport, food prices, businesses, employment, household incomes, public finance, and ultimately the life of every Nigerian. But beyond the immediate hardship, we've also heard that moments like this present opportunities to strengthen our institutions, to improve governance, diversify economy, and build resilience. This is the size of Global Morning this morning. It's been an amazing time, Sadiya Yakubu.
Thank you very much, Mukhtar.
From all of the conversations, taste and texture, aerobics, it's been
I didn't even talk about the aerobics. I need to say something about it before we leave.
Yes.
You know, we have various forms of exercise. We have the jumping, we have dancing, we have skipping.
Yes.
We have walking, and then etc.
I'm tempted to ask you, which one do you engage in?
I don't.
we have to start doing that. So we keep in shape, all of us, of course.
So you see, that was why we brought that of dancing, so that you could dance and move your body.
And that's the important thing. If you can't do it, it's different types. Whichever one that works for you. Hold it and do it properly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for everyone who has joined the conversation. We say a very big thank you. My name is Mukhtar Kasim.
And I am Sadiya Yakubu.
We're saying bye for now.